hello again. It's Mrs. Coley. You're in for a real treat. Today, as you can see, with our schedule of lessons, we're going to be learning about verbs. We're going to go back and review what a verb is. I did ask you this question not too long ago, and I says if you can't remember, go ahead and look on the little cheat sheet here. So there's two types of verbs, correct? We have an action verb, and we have a verb that shows a state of being. Let's discuss this a little bit further. Before we do that, I would like to ask you to reach inside your desk and pull out any kind of a spiral notebook that you have that you use in your class to record your reading and writing information. So if you have a reading or a writing journal, please get that book ready to go, because I'm going to ask you to write down some information in it. And the information that I'd like you to write down in it is first write the date, and underneath the date write the word verbs. And then underneath verbs, you're going to draw some lines. So just draw 2 lines down and it should make 3 columns. And let's see if you remember from previous years the skills that you need in order to go from past, present to future tense. There's differences that happen to those verbs. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go ahead and think of the verb and think of it how you use it in a sentence. If it's past tense, you would say yesterday, and then think of your sentence, and then think of that word that you chose that's the verb or the action word. Write that for past tense. In the middle column, it's going to be our present tense. That's happening right now. So you would say, whatever your sentence is, that's happening right now. Go ahead and write that verb in the present tense column. And then our last column is the future tense. So now this time you're going to start the sentence with, in a month, and then whatever your sentence is. So really most of it stays the same, except there's an ending that takes place on the verb. And I'm going to look and see if you are aware of how those endings change based off upon, is it present tense or past tense, present tense, or future tense? And then also you may have to add additional words to your verb for some of those tenses. Okay, so let's see how you did. So we learned about our nouns and pronouns. We've been learning about subjects, and today we're going to be learning about verbs again. So we said that verbs describe an action or a state of being, and we're going to come back to this in just a minute. Here they are. This is what you were supposed to create in your journal. I asked you to draw 2 lines, and on those 2 lines, you were supposed to have 1 column that was past tense, 1 column that was present tense, and 1 column that was future tense. So if you chose the word walked, or if you chose the word jump, or if you chose the word drew or paid, the most important thing to remember is most of the verbs that are past tense, all you have to do is add them with an ed, unless they are what's called an irregular verb. Then those letters change and you don't add ed. Now let's look at those words as present tense verbs. So it was yesterday I walked, or today I am walking. So you could say am, or today I walked to the store, or he walks to the store. So you could add an ing to it, or you can just leave it as the base word walk, and then add some kind of a suffix like an s if it's a singular pronoun, or singular other than I or you, and then we don't have an S on the end, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Okay, let's try future tense with the word walked. Walking or walks, you would say will walk. So the most important thing to know about future tense is that the verb has a will in front of it. You will do something in the future. You will walk in the future. So did you get it? Awesome job for those of you that remembered your verbs and you remembered how to identify past, present, and future verbs. Something else we need to be aware of is that we have what's called helping verbs and linking verbs. Helping verbs help these action verbs. Linking verbs, they don't need an action verb to go with it. They stand alone without any additional verb partner. So if I was to use one of these helping verbs, which you can see the list is here, I'm going to use the word has, and I'm going to use the word have, and I'm going to use the word had. That's, I'd say, one of the most traditional forms of a helping verb. I will use it with the word walked, walking, and will walk. And you can see how I can use that word to help these sentences to grow. If I use the word walked, it's past tense. I need to think about my helping verb that I would use. Would I use have, had, has, or having? And the answer is had. We had walked to the store yesterday. Does that make sense? Okay. Then if I come over to the present tense verbs, I need to make sure that my helping verbs are also present tense. So my choices are have or has. And we're going to go with, depending on what your subject is, we said we walked. So this time we're going to say we have been walking. So in this one, I would use have and the be verb right here, which is been. Have, not have be watching, have been watching. So you have to change some of those smaller size words to match up what you're going to conjugate with them. So I have been walking to the store, or he has been walking to the store. So see how I have to change the form of the has to match the pronoun that goes with it. We talked about pronouns, and so this is a situation where you have to have that subject-verb agreement. Future tense would be, we will be walking, or we will walk to the store. So that's an example. I don't want to take too much time going over this, but that's how you would use the helping verbs with your traditional past, present, and future verbs. Now, our other category is the linking verbs. They describe conditions. So that would be something like, I am happy. She is friendly. He was sad. We were, remember it has to be describe conditions. We were ready. We were ready for going to the store or whatever, but you could just say we were ready, period. Okay, got it? Now let's move on to some of our special past tense verb rules. You can see some of them applying here. These are called regular verbs. If you have to change a bunch of the letters, then it becomes irregular. So these are 5 rules that you probably have already learned. We're going to review those together right now. The first rule is, does the verb end with a silent E? If the word ends with a silent E, like the word bake, what they suggest that you do to make it go to past tense, we know that we have to add ed to make our verbs past tense. But hey, look, it already has an E. So they say drop the E, then add the ed. So bake turns into baked, and like turns into liked, just by dropping the E and adding ed. Okay, got it? These here, this is an example of that, and this is an example of that. Okay, that rule. Number 2, does the verb end with a vowel and Y? For example, the word stay. The example is stay. What do we do if we have the word stay? Well, the rule says all you have to do is add ed. So instead of I stay at my house, yesterday I stayed at my house. Don't do anything. Our third rule says, does the verb end with a consonant and Y? For example, the word cry. has a consonant and a Y. What are we going to do? Well, the rule says change the Y to I, then add ed. So now cry, I get rid of the Y, I add I and add ed. And the word goes from cry to cried and carry to carried. Nothing else changes. Okay, that's rule 3. Rule number 4 says, does the verb end with a short vowel and then a single consonant? These are what's known as our CVC words, or our consonant vowel consonant words, where the vowel is short. So in this case, what you have to do is you need to double that last consonant and then add your ed. For example, the word snap, CVC. So I'm going to double the consonant, which means double the P, and then add your ed, and it turns to snapped. If you forget to double that P, you spelled the word snaped. And snaped and snap are 2 different words. That's why we have to learn our rules. Our next word we're going to look at is the word bat. Like I like to bat a ball. You spell it B-A-T, but maybe you want to say yesterday I batted the ball, if that's a word. So what you would do is you would say, okay, I see it's a CVC, it's short A. I'm going to double the T and add ed. So bat changes now to batted. I batted the ball. And then it says with all other regular verbs, all you have to do is add ed, like to the word latch, add ed, it now turns to latched. I latched the door. Yesterday I latched the door. Today I latched the door. Yesterday I latched the door. And what would future tense be? I will latch the door, correct? Okay, so it's up to you. Let's try the next page. The next thing we have to be aware of is right here. Is our story written in first person, second person, or third person? This is when your pronouns must change to represent who it is that you are writing about or that you're reading about. So we're going to go through what is a regular verb going to look like versus an irregular verb. To begin with, we're looking at the word jump. If we read the word jump in first person present tense, you would say something like this. I jump. If you read it in first person past tense, all you would do is add ed and it turns into I jumped. If you're going to talk about jumping in the future tense as a first person about yourself, you're the first person, you would say I will jump. Good? Let's try another one. Now we're going to talk about second person. Second person always has the pronoun you, meaning you that I'm speaking to, you. So if I was to use the word jump again, I would say you jump. If it happened in the past tense like yesterday, I would say you jumped, like you jumped on a trampoline. Or if it's happening in the future, I would say, in a week, you will jump on my trampoline. Sound good? Good. Let's move on. Now we are going to talk about third person and how that is represented as our verb tenses. In present tense, you would say, this is now talking about other people, maybe people across the playground from you. And you could point at them and say, oh, look, she jumps. It's happening right now. You're at recess. She's got a jump rope. Oh, look, she jumps. Or maybe yesterday you were watching a girl from a distance on the playground and you said, oh, yesterday I noticed she jumped. Okay. And maybe you think she's going to jump tomorrow with the jump rope because she asked her teacher for a jump rope. And you say something like this, tomorrow she will jump. Or tomorrow I know she will jump with jump rope. So you can see how that changes depending upon what kind of pronoun you use. Remember, even though I is singular and you is singular in this case, and she is singular, you can see that with the she or he or it, you have to have an S on the end. That is one of our rules. So verbs can be probably the trickiest out of all, I'd say, the parts of speech, just because there's so much involved with them. So we need to, I guess, spend twice as much time really getting to know our verbs and our verb tenses. Now, in our different types of verbs. Now we're going to talk about irregular verbs. Irregular verbs, as I've mentioned before, that's where the letters in the word change to make that new word because they're irregular. That means not regular. Ir means not. It's a prefix. They're not regular verbs. So our first person, using the word see, present tense, you would say, today I see the sun. Oh, let's not use the sun because that wouldn't be good. I'm going to say flower. Today I see the beautiful flower. If it happened in the past, you would say yesterday, the C, notice the two letters E have changed now to an AW. So this is when you have to really start to develop your spelling skills and your writing skills. They go hand in hand, don't they? Spelling and writing. Future, you would say, in a week, she will see a beautiful flower. Everybody got it? I got it. Hopefully you did too. Now, these are some of the rules I just talked to you about. So if it's singular, which it says singular pronouns, on these verbs here, all we did was add the S. If the pronoun is a she, or if it's my dog, because it's now talking about a dog, the dog naps, or if it's talking about, if it actually has a boy or a girl's name, Josie eats, then you would have the S on the end. We don't want to put an S on the end of singular words if they are I, the pronoun I, or the pronoun you. Then you leave the S off. And again, it would sound very strange to your ear. If you heard somebody say, I likes apples, yeah, that you'd have to take a second. You'd have to stop and think for a second because it didn't make sense to you, did it? So you'd have to take a second take on that one and say, what are they trying to say? Because you wouldn't understand. Then you would say, oh, okay. What you meant to say was, I like apples. With I and you, we don't add the S, even if it's singular. And this is a compound sentence because they've added the comma there, and we're going to talk more about that. So this is two simple sentences added together with a conjunction plus a comma makes for, this is a compound sentence, and it reads, I like apples, but you like grapes. Isn't that nice? Very good. Okay, I'm going to go back and we're going to talk about predicates. Now that we understand our verbs, it's now time to really understand what a predicate is. We know what a subject is. It answers the who or what. Now we need to discuss what is a predicate. What is its job? Well, the predicate's job is to answer what the subject is, has, or does. And listen to how I figure this out when I get to a sentence that I don't know. I start off by reading the sentence to myself. I would say the alligator eats cookies and milk. If I'm trying to find the predicate, I would read the alligator does what? Whatever the alligator does, that's your predicate. So the alligator, I would say to you, the alligator does what? And your response would be, eats cookies and milk. And then I would say to you, so what is the predicate in that sentence? And you would say, eats cookies and milk. Now, if we really look at what the predicate is, you're going to see that it always starts with a verb, and it's anything that follows the verb makes up the predicate. Got it? Nice. Let's try one more exercise with our subjects and verbs. We're now going to talk about what a simple sentence is. Simple sentences have subjects and predicates. This is an example here. The rabbit ate the carrot. So I would say, who ate the carrot? And you would say, the rabbit. And then I would say, so what is the subject? And you would say, the rabbit. So what is the subject in the sentence? You say the rabbit. I'm going to do the same thing now for my predicate. I'm going to read the sentence again. The rabbit ate the carrot. And then I'm going to say, what did the rabbit eat? And you would say, ate the carrot. So the predicate is ate the carrot. This right here is what kind of a sentence? It's a simple sentence. A simple sentence, can you say that with me? A simple sentence, read this also called a what? It's called an independent clause. Say that again. Independent clause. So they are the same thing. So this sentence is not only a simple sentence, but we also call it an independent clause because it can stand alone. It can be by itself. We can get all the information we need from this sentence. If I said the rabbit, is that a simple sentence or an independent clause? And you would say, no, Mrs. Coley, that is not a simple sentence. All that is the subject. Or if I said to you, ate the carrot, Would you say, yeah, Mrs. Coley, that's a sentence? Or would you say, no, Mrs. Coley, that's not? It doesn't make sense, does it? If I walk up to you and just said, ate the carrot, you would wonder what I'm talking about. So ate the carrot is the predicate, and we have to have the two things to make a simple sentence. Simple sentences have no dependent or subordinate clauses. We're going to find out that some of our other sentences do have these dependent clauses, like in a complex sentence, and that's coming up in the future. But for purposes of today, we're only going to focus on simple sentences. We're going to start off really easy. Simple sentences are sentences you've been writing since probably preschool or kindergarten. They're as basic as we can get them because they can be two words. He jumped. She slept. Those are all simple sentences because they have a subject and a verb. And in that case, the verb is the predicate, even though it's just a verb because there's nothing that follows. Okay, enough is enough. Let's go ahead and look at these sentences and see what they're doing. The sentence reads, my friend has a beautiful fish. So what does the friend have? Okay, so who has a fish? The friend, so that's your subject. What does your friend have? A beautiful fish. That's the verb, and this is the predicate. This whole part here is the predicate. Okay, so it has a subject and a verb. It's a simple sentence. Let's try this one. My friend and I both have fish. Oh, wow, look at what's going on here. Now we have two subjects. We have a friend and I. So is this a simple sentence? What do you think? Yes, I think it is, or no, I don't think it is. Well, guess what? Simple sentences can have more than one subject. So yes, this is a simple sentence, and it has one verb, have. And have fish would be your predicate. Let's look at this sentence. My friend feeds and watches her fish. Oh, look. I noticed this sentence has two verbs. Do you think this sentence is still a simple sentence? Yes, I think it is. No, I don't think it is. Everybody vote. The answer is yes, it is. Why is it? Well, because it has one subject and it has two verbs. This is called a compound. These are called compound verbs. These are called compound subjects. And that's fine. We can have those with our simple sentences. And then we start with a capital and we end with some ending punctuation, typically a period. That makes it a statement. Everybody good? Nice job. Okay, and tomorrow we're going to talk more about adjectives, or the next time we meet. But for today's purposes, I'd like you to know on your piece of paper, I'd like you to list three different verbs. So three different verbs, and it could be anything that I've shown you today. I'll go back here. Maybe we'll even have it on this page. This is really clear. I want you to choose if you're going to write in first, second, or third person. If you write in first person, it could be about you. And then I want you to choose three verbs, and I want you to write them in present tense, past tense, and future tense on your paper. And let's see if your learning has improved from the start when I gave you a pre-test to your post-test now that you have finished this lesson with me today. I hope that you now can take three different verbs and know how to write them in past tense, present tense, and future tense. That was our goal for this lesson. I know you can do this, boys and girls. You are amazing, and you have great literacy skills. Until next time, bye-bye.